greatest honor of my professional life to represent the great people of South Florida. I'm excited to start a new chapter in my life, and for whatever life throws at me, all I have to say is, put me in, Coach. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to my constituents.
That was Ileana Ros-Lehtinen in her farewell address to her colleagues in the House. Over the course of nearly 30 years in Congress, Ros-Lehtinen earned a reputation for independence. She maintained a strident view on her native Cuba, but also broke with her fellow Republicans on issues like the environment, gay rights, and immigration. A frequent critic of the president, she has watched as the Republican Party has morphed into the party of Trump. Frequent guest on this show, and arguably my mother's favorite guest is here, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. This is your last interview.
Thank you, Jimbo.
As a member of Congress.
I'm always a favorite of moms, and especially abuelas.
Oh,
that's my
that's your sweet spot.
That's my sweet spot.
That's your sweet spot. Moms and abuelas.
Moms and abuelas.
So we watched that speech on the floor. Was it a little emotional?
It was not. I've loved this. I've enjoyed every minute of it. By the way, I was worried that I was wearing the same outfit, but it is a different jacket and it's a different blouse. So I sort of dress in monochrome every time. But it's been a greatest honor of my professional life. Thank you to the constituents. I've loved every minute of it. Dude, I'm ready for another adventure. Dexter and I are going to be teaching a class at the University of Miami. I've just been selected to be a fellow at Georgetown, where I'm going to be teaching again Congress and American foreign policy. I hope to be a consultant with a firm or something like that on Latin America and Middle East. I'm going to be just as busy. This has been great. What an honor.
Well,
Thank you.
You're not over yet because there's some unfinished business, the budget. So let's start with the news. Obviously, the president is threatening to shut down the government if he doesn't get his border wall. Where does this stand in your mind? Because this is maybe your final votes is on this issue, whether to do a continuing resolution or a budget wall or border wall.
You know, and that Oval Office meeting between the president, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer was reality TV on steroids. And he says, I will shut the government. I will take full credit for it. I'm not even going to blame you, Chuck or Nancy. I mean, what kind of bluster? And our job by the Constitution, one thing we need to do is fund the government, keep agencies open, provide services, and we can't seem to do that. It doesn't matter if it's Republican, Democrat in the White House. And you know, it didn't used to be that way. People are thinking that this is something that's always happened. No,
we'll get to that.
I've been here a long time.
I want to talk about
new thing.
I want to talk about the transition, but first, I just want to stay with this. The president in that meeting said that he has the votes among Republicans to pass a border wall.
He does not.
Not in the Republican caucus.
He does not have the votes because some Republicans, more conservative, think that it costs too much, it's not the best use of money, and they want to work on this project. Some, such as my colleagues, I don't want to put words in their mouth, don't think that that's the best use of tax. I mean, we're talking so much money, and it's something that we need to get together on and say, okay, what is the technology? How are we going to do this? We really haven't had a full-throated, open debate on what we're talking about.
So you don't think he's going to get his border wall?
I never predict what's going to happen in Congress. I've never been right yet. I believe that we don't have the votes in the Republican caucus. I'm not going to vote for it. I want to see a solid plan of how we're going to fund this. Mexico's going to pay for the wall. That didn't turn out so well. With the savings, we are really paying for the wall. I mean, the taxpayers' money. Your money is going to be paying for the wall.
So let's touch on a couple other things. If it were to come to a vote today for impeachment, where would you be on the issue of impeachment? I
don't think that the case has been made for impeachment. I have been through an impeachment proceeding with Bill Clinton. It is a difficult, ugly chapter in modern history. It tears the country apart. Now we've got this issue of whether we'll wait for the Mueller report on the Russia part. But so far we know about the hush payments made by Michael Cohen on Donald
Is that
Trump's
serious
behalf.
enough? Because a lot of Republicans are trying to downplay and dismiss it and say it's not really a big deal.
Well, it's atrocious. It's not good. But we went through this with John Edwards before, where he had similar, not everything is the same, but then it was a mistrial, acquitting, and then the Justice Department decided not to retry it. So we have some precedent that says the Justice Department might not consider this enough for a criminal charge.
Let me ask it this way. Let me ask it this way. What percentage do you put on the likelihood that Donald Trump gets impeached at some point in the future?
I believe it's low because I think that the Democrats are going to overplay their hand. You've got real bulldogs like Jerry Nadler, Maxine Waters. You've got folks who are really ginned up for battle, and I think that even
they got to be careful.
They've got to be very careful. Having gone through an impeachment, it's an ugly battle, and they've got to be careful to not overstep and not just be anti-Trump all the time. Look, domestically, I disagree on Donald Trump on a million things. Internationally, I think that he's done a good job on Israel, on Nicaragua, on Colombia, on Venezuela. So I give him kudos for that. But there are some people who don't see anything good in Donald Trump. So even me saying that, I'll get people to dislike me automatically because I say one good thing about Trump, and you can't win. Donald Trump is such a polarizing figure.
You were starting to sort of talk about it before. How much have you seen Congress change over the 29 years you've been in it?
Oh, Jim, where do I begin? When I started, it was around World War II, maybe it was a Civil War, I'm not sure. It was a long time ago. We had Dante Fascell, a champion from South Dade here, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, totally bipartisan. Bill Lehman, another sweetheart of a gentleman, totally bipartisan, nonpartisan. But what's the difference? Because then, Jim, when I got elected, I was just another lowly Republican. Now, the balance of power can swing in any election. Me being elected, when I got elected to Congress, it didn't swing anything. It was just another Republican. Bob Michael was the minority leader, a very nice bipartisan guy. Now we've got firebrands who have to prove in both of their caucuses.
Is that a bad thing is that a bad thing overall?
I think it is a bad thing.
Because also the gerrymandering of districts so that you don't really have to worry. You're safe so you can say the most outrageous things and not be worried about losing your election.
Look, you have someone like Matt Gaetz. I don't know. I don't know what his the demographics are in terms of party, but maybe R plus 20. I don't know. I really don't know. But you've got a district like mine that is slightly more Democratic than Republican. And I think it makes you a better member of Congress to have that kind of swing district. My district can go one way, can go the other way. And now you've got Republicans who are dug in because they're in really, really, really Republican districts. And you've got Democrats in very Democratic districts.
Is this the Republican Party?
There's not enough.
Is it still the Republican Party or is it the party of Trump?
Well, I think that it's becoming a lot more like the party of Trump. I am a proud Republican. I'm proud to be a Republican. I'm in no way switching parties. I'm a Republican of a Jeb Bush. I was just in the mass for George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41, and what the words that were said about him, every word true, and every word true for the Republican Party. And I'm thinking, could those words be said about Donald Trump? I'm not sure. But every person has their own personality and their own style of governing. But what I've seen of President Trump, this art of the deal, I've not seen these deals bear fruit in Congress. It's either my way or the highway. And I just think that those days of Dante Fascell shepherding the cause for Bush 41, for the invasion when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, Dante Fascell spearheaded the call for action, military action. Who would see that happening now, that a Democrat would do that for a Republican president?
We have only about 30 seconds or so left. What's your proudest achievement? What do you look back on and say that was something that I want to be part of my legacy?
Helping constituents. I don't care these fancy people I've met with, great events I've gone to, helping Maria Perez and Joe Blow with their Social Security check and the public housing and veterans benefits. Public service, it's what I've loved. And I don't care about bills, although I've been pretty good about passing a lot of good bills, but it's helping constituents. That's what public service is all about.
And you're going to continue trying to do it in your own way now.
Yep, I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to be very active in Latin America and Middle East. That's still in my wheelhouse. I hope to be active in all of that.
Well, you know, this is your last time as a member of Congress, but we want to have you back.
Can I keep the
You
cup?
can keep the mug,
Okay.
and we want to have you come back a number of times because your insight is invaluable.
Jimbo,
So-
you're a good friend.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to call you that, but thank you. I've enjoyed being on your show. Put me on again as has-been caucus.
We'll put you in, Coach. I just said at the there. All right. Thank you very much.
you.
Up next, a programming note and some news we're all very proud of when we come back.